In this lesson, we are going to review a few of the methods that we have learned in order to solve a quadratic equation. Let's see. So, this is the standard form of a quadratic. It is always good to keep this in mind. We always want our equations to look in this format. The methods that we're going to be using in order to solve the following examples will be factoring. It's always good to keep factoring in mind using the square root property. Sometimes I say method. I think the correct way is property, but I like method. Completing the square and the formula that works with everything, the quadratic formula. Okay? First example. Keeping in mind, it has to be in standard form. Is it in standard form? I don't think so. So why don't we go ahead and work it out, meaning simplify a little bit more. I will start with rewriting this part right here because this is x plus 3 squared, which means there's 2 of x plus 3. Then I'm going to bring everything else down. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and FOIL here. It's a double distribute. So I have x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. Bring everything else down. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. This is a like term. This is a like term. Like term, like term, like term. So x squared plus x squared gives me 2x squared. 3x plus 3x is 6x. Minus 9x is negative 3x. And then I'm just going to bring down the 9. So now I have another step. I need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to minus the 8. So I have 2x squared minus 3x. Plus 1 equals 0 because 9 minus 8 is 1. So now I am left with a equation that is in standard form. I have a choice from this point. Try to see if my equation is factorable. Well, let's see. 2 times 1 is 2. Factors of 2 that will add to 3. Factors of 2 that will add to 3, well, 2 and 1, right? So I choose to solve by factoring. Factoring, and I'm going to use the AC method. That was my choice. Now, I could use the quadratic formula with this. The quadratic formula works with anything. I could also use completing the square. Now, I am going to end up with a fraction if I use completing the square. That's why I'm not going to use that. And this is not in the square root property format. Okay? So, solving by factoring is the easiest method to do this. Okay? I think I have more space here. Yeah. So, let me go ahead and rewrite the 2x squared. 2x squared minus 3 plus 1 equals 0. Let's double check if I rewrote that right. Yeah, minus 3x plus 1 equals 0. So I said I'm going to solve this using AC method. So 2 times 1 is 2. Factors of 2 that will add to 3 are 1 and 2. So I'm going to rewrite my trinomial as a polynomial of 4 terms, where the 2 factors I found, which is 1 and 2, replace the middle term. How do I know the signs? Well, I'm going to bring the first sign down, and then I'm saying negative times a positive gives you a negative. So both sides are negative. Now I'm going to go ahead and split this in the middle and factor by grouping. The GCF between 2x squared and 2x is 2x. So I'm going to bring that down. I am left with x minus 1. What I see in common here is just a negative 1. Since this is a negative, you want to bring down the negative 1. Negative x divided by negative 1 is just x. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. What repeats here is the x minus 1, so I'm going to bring that down. what I have left is 2x minus 1. Okay, now remember we are solving for x. We are solving for x. So that means I need to find the value of x. So I'm going to set each binomial equal to 0 and solve for x. So this is x equals 1 because I added 1. And x equals 1/2. What happened here? Sorry. I skipped that step. My bad. Sometimes it can happen. Very rare, but it happens. So that's where I got the 1/2 from. So the two solutions for this quadratic formula are x equals 1 and x equals 1/2. So I solved this problem using factoring, and the method of factoring that I used was the AC method. Okay? Let's see more examples here. So now this still is not in the standard form of a quadratics. So I would like for it to be in standard form. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it in standard form. So I'm going to add the 2x to this side. As I add the 2x, I'm going to write it in descending order. Okay. So again, I have my trinomial now. I have my quadratic equation in the correct form. So I can check to see if it's factorable. So I'm going to say 1 times 5 is 5. Factors of 5 that add to 2, there's none. So this is not factorable. Not factorable. Okay. It's not in this proper format for the square root property, but instead of using the quadratic, I'm going to go ahead and do completing the square. I'm going to complete the square to solve this. As I complete the square, you will end up using the square root property. So I'm going to rewrite it on here. I'm going to change color. So I have x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals 0. So the steps we complete in the square is to minus the c. Okay. Then take divide by the coefficient of divide by a, the coefficient of the first term, which is a. In this case is 1, so we don't need to do that. So the third step is to take the middle term, divide by 2, and square it. So that gives me 1. So then the fourth step is to take that number and add it to both the left and right side of the equation. Okay. Once you do that, your left side will turn into a perfect square trinomial, which the answer will be x plus 1 squared. And on this side, I'm going to have -4. How does that happen? Factors of 1 that add to 2 are 1 and 1. And this is a perfect square trinomial. It's always good for you to refer perfect square trinomial. Okay. Now from here, I am going to solve using the square root property. Okay, I'm going to do that on the next slide. So that is, what is the question? X plus 1 squared. X plus 1 squared equals -4. Remember, with the square root property, you're going to cancel the square. So you're going to do the square root of both sides. Cancel, cancel. This leaves with x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of -4. Remember, we are dealing with a negative inside the radical, which take us to review this. So I'm going to break this into 4 and -1. The square root of -1 is I. So this is going to be square root of 4 is 2. Square root of -1 is I. So then we'll go back to our problem, and we have x plus 1 equals plus or minus 2i. Minus the 1 on both sides. X equals -1 plus or minus 2i. So x equals -1 plus 2i, and x equals -1 minus 2i. Those are your two solutions for this quadratic equation. Let's see another example. Well, this one, it's already in standard form. So when they're already in standard form, and since we haven't reviewed the quadratic formula, because you do know that the quadratic formula will work with any of the previous examples we have done, let's go ahead and do the quadratic formula for this one. So again, I'm going to start by writing my formula. It's always good to rewrite it. The more you rewrite it, the better you memorize it. I need to label my A, B, and C. A is 12, C is -5. B is -5 and C is -2. I'm going to go ahead and substitute my values. Make sure you do this step by step. It is very easy to make a mistake, especially with the negatives. And we don't want to do that. This is a bit of a long formula, so it's good to take your time. Now we're going to simplify the negative sign. So a negative times a negative, it gives you a +5. Square root of 5 is 25. Sorry, skipped up almost. Okay, little by little, 2 times 12 is 24. Let's go ahead and simplify inside the radical now. And we have 4 times 12 times 2, -2. Well, let's do it like this. -4 times 12 times -2. Okay? And that gives me 96. Right? Make sure you double check my work. I tend to make some mistakes like that. Those arithmetic mistakes. So I have 25 plus 96 over 24. So what is 25 plus 96? That's 121. Oh, that seems like a very nice number. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take this to the next page because we're running out of space. So I have 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 over 24. So this gives me 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 is 11 over 24. Let's go ahead and rewrite it into the two answers. 11 plus 20, 5 plus 11 over 24. And 5 minus 11 over 24. So 5 plus 11 gives me 16 over 24. This only reduces the fraction. If you divide by 4, it gives you 4 over 6. Then you divide by 2, it gives you 2 over 3. So this is 2/3. Let's see, 5 minus 11 gives you -6 over 24. Again, if we simplify this, we can divide by 6. So this gives you -1 over 4. So -1 over 4. So these are your two solutions for this quadratic equation. So we had a few examples. Let's see. The first example we solve using factoring. The second example, we use completing the square and finish it using the square root property. And the third example, we use the quadratic formula.